Millionaire marries a poor woman as a dare, and is shocked when she does this. Before diving into the story, tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Enjoy the story. The camera pans across the opulent interior of the Drake, Chicago's most exclusive social club, where crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over dark mahogany panels and leather armchairs. Alexander Alex Montgomery III sits at his usual corner table, swirling a glass of 25-year-old scotch as he watches his fellow trust fund babies compete for who can waste money the most creatively. The air is thick with cigar smoke and privilege, exactly the way he likes it. At 32, Alex has never worked a day in his life, and why should he? The Montgomery real estate empire practically runs itself, leaving him free to indulge in his favorite pastime, making ridiculous bets with his equally bored millionaire friends. "I'm telling you, Alex, marriage is a complete scam," declares Richard Sterling, his best friend since their Phillips Exeter days, as he loosens his Hermes tie. "Look at what happened to James. Lost half his fortune to that model he met in Milan." The ice cubes in Richard's glass clink as he takes another sip, his signet ring catching the light. "That's why I'm staying a bachelor forever." Alex leans back in his chair, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. The familiar weight of boredom settles over him like a heavy blanket. "Maybe you're just scared, Rich. Not everyone has my superior judgment when it comes to reading people." The words come out with practiced arrogance, but internally, Alex feels the emptiness of another meaningless evening stretching before him. Richard's eyes narrow, recognizing the challenge in Alex's tone. "Superior judgment? You've never had to judge anyone outside our social circle. It's easy to read people when they all went to the same prep schools in summer in the Hamptons." He pauses, a dangerous glint appearing in his eyes. "In fact, I bet you couldn't last a month married to someone from the other side of the tracks." The conversation around their table dies down as the other members of their exclusive circle sense the beginning of another legendary Montgomery Sterling wager. Alex feels his pulse quicken. Finally, something interesting. "Name your terms," he says, his voice carrying that particular mix of confidence and condescension that only generations of wealth can produce. Richard sits forward, clearly enjoying himself. $1 million says you can't marry someone who makes less than $40,000 a year and stay married to them for at least 6 months. And here's the kicker. You have to make them fall in love with you, genuinely in love. No paying them off, no explaining it's a bet. They have to think it's real." Alex's fingers drum against the polished table surface as he considers the proposition. The stake is negligible, he probably has more than that in his coat pocket right now, but the challenge intrigues him. "And how exactly would you verify the love part of this equation?" "Oh, I think we'll know," Richard chuckles, glancing around at their assembled friends. "These people wear their hearts on their sleeves. Not like us. If she's not truly in love by the end of 6 months, you lose. And if you break character or tell her about the bet, you lose. Simple as that." "Done," Alex says without hesitation, extending his hand across the table. As their friends cheer and Richard shakes his hand, sealing the bet, Alex already begins strategizing. He's never failed at getting what he wants, and he's certainly not going to start now. How hard could it be to make some simple girl fall in love with him? Little does Alex know, as he sits in his leather chair surrounded by wealth and sycophants, that this bet is about to change his life in ways he could never imagine. The woman he's about to meet will challenge everything he thinks he knows about love, worth, and himself. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any of the amazing stories we have coming up. Your support really helps the channel grow and keeps us bringing you more of what you love. Thank you. The scene shifts to the bustling kitchen of the little corner cafe, where Sarah Chin wipes beads of sweat from her forehead with her forearm, careful not to let her hands, covered in flour, touch her face. The morning rush is in full swing, and the small bakery cafe where she works fills with the comforting aroma of fresh baked bread and coffee. Her arms ache from kneading dough since 4 a.m., but she can't afford to slow down. Not when her mother's medical bills keep piling up. "Order up for table 7, calls out Marco, the short order cook, his voice barely audible over the clatter of plates and the hiss of the espresso machine. Sarah quickly wipes her hands on her apron and grabs the plates, expertly weaving between tables in the crowded space. The regulars smile at her as she passes. They've all grown used to her perpetual motion, serving tables while simultaneously managing the bakery section of the cafe. "You're going to work yourself to death, Mihija," Rosa, the motherly owner, chides as Sarah rushes past the counter. "When was the last time you took a day off?" Sarah just flashes her a quick smile, the kind that doesn't quite reach her tired eyes. At 28, she's already mastered the art of hiding her exhaustion. Can't afford to, Rosa? Mom's new treatment starts next week, Sarah responds, deftly delivering plates to a young couple before heading back to check on her latest batch of cinnamon rolls. The sweet, spicy scent that wafts from the oven tells her they're almost perfect. These little moments of creation are what keep her going, even on the hardest days. Later, during a rare quiet moment, Sarah sits at the small desk in the back office, surrounded by invoices and receipts. She's been helping Rosa with the books since the older woman's arthritis made it difficult to type. The numbers swim before her eyes as she calculates her mother's upcoming medical expenses against her meager savings. Even with 2 jobs, the morning shift at the cafe and evening online tutoring sessions, she's barely keeping her head above water. Her phone buzzes with a text from her mother. "Don't forget your father's anniversary tomorrow. I'm feeling strong enough to visit the cemetery if you can take me." Sarah's throat tightens. Has it really been 5 years since the accident? She remembers it like it was yesterday, the late-night phone call, the screeching tires, the drunk driver who walked away without a scratch while her father, who had been walking home from his second job, never walked again. The bell above the cafe door chimes, pulling Sarah from her memories. She quickly wipes away the tear that had escaped down her cheek and stands, straightening her flour-dusted apron. As she emerges from the back office, she nearly collides with a tall figure in an expensive suit. So out of place in their modest neighborhood that he might as well have stepped out of another world. "I'm so sorry," Sarah starts to apologize, looking up into startlingly blue eyes that regard her with an expression she can't quite read. She notices a slight smirk playing at the corners of his mouth, the kind of expression she's seen on people who've never had to apologize for anything in their lives. "No harm done," he says smoothly, and something in his voice makes her pause. It's kind enough on the surface, but there's an undertone that raises her guard. The same instinct that helps her spot customers who might skip out on their bills. "I'm actually looking for the owner. I represent Montgomery Real Estate Holdings, and we're interested in discussing some opportunities for this charming establishment." Sarah feels her shoulders tense at his words. She's heard stories about Montgomery Real Estate, the company notorious for buying up small businesses in developing neighborhoods, only to replace them with luxury condos and overpriced coffee shops. Rosa appears beside her, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her usually warm expression cooled several degrees. "I'm Rosa Martinez, the owner," she says firmly. "And we're not interested in any opportunities. This cafe has been here for 20 years, and it'll be here 20 more." Sarah admires the steel in Rosa's voice, even as she notices the slight tremor in her hands, a combination of arthritis and worry. Alex's smirk doesn't waver. "Perhaps we could discuss this over coffee? Your establishment comes highly recommended for its local charm." His eyes drift to Sarah, lingering a moment longer than necessary. She feels like a specimen under a microscope being evaluated and catalogued. "The coffee here is for paying customers," Sarah finds herself saying, surprising even herself with her boldness. "And we're quite busy, as you can see." She gestures to the half-full cafe, knowing she's being petty but unable to help herself. Something about this man sets her teeth on edge. To her surprise, Alex pulls out a chair at the nearest table and sits down, smoothing his perfectly tailored suit. "In that case, I'll have a cappuccino and whatever pastry the lovely baker recommends." His eyes meet hers again, this time with a hint of challenge. "I assume these are your creations? I noticed the flower on your apron." Sarah hesitates, caught between professional obligation and personal annoyance. "The cinnamon rolls just came out of the oven," she says finally, keeping her tone neutral. "They're our specialty." She turns to get his order, but his voice stops her. "I'll take 2 then. And please join me. I insist." He pulls out the chair across from him, the gesture somehow both courteous and presumptuous. "Unless you're too busy?" The slight emphasis on the last word makes it clear he's throwing her earlier comment back at her. Rosa gives Sarah a subtle nod. They both know it's better to keep potential threats close where they can watch them. Sarah reluctantly sits down after bringing his order, aware of every crease in her well-worn uniform, every strand of hair escaping her messy bun. Alex takes a bite of the cinnamon roll and his eyebrows raise slightly. "This is exceptional," he says, sounding genuinely surprised. "You have a gift." The compliment should feel good, but something about his tone suggests he's amazed that someone like her could create something he deems worthy of praise. "My father taught me to bake," Sarah says, unsure why she's sharing this with him. "He learned from his mother in Taiwan and she learned from her mother. Some things are worth more than money, Mr. Montgomery." She sees something flicker in his eyes, confusion? Interest? Before his practiced smile returns. Please call me Alex, he says, leaning forward slightly. And everything has its price. For instance, I'd love to learn the secret to making these cinnamon rolls. Perhaps over dinner? Sarah stares at him, momentarily speechless. Is he actually asking her out? Here. No. The audacity is almost impressive. I'm sorry, but I don't date customers. Especially ones who want to put my friends out of business. She stands up, smoothing her apron. Enjoy your coffee, Mr. Montgomery. Rosa can help you with the bill. As she walks away, she feels his eyes following her. In the kitchen, her hands shake slightly as she aggressively kneads a new batch of dough. The nerve of him, thinking he could buy her recipes with a dinner date. Still, a tiny voice in her head notes how his eyes crinkled genuinely when he tasted her baking, how for just a moment, his practiced facade had slipped. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any of the amazing stories we have coming up. Your support really helps the channel grow and keeps us bringing you more of what you love. Thank you. Back in his Maserati, Alex loosens his tie and lets out a long breath. The scent of cinnamon still lingers in his nostrils, mixed with something else, the ghost of vanilla and warm bread that seemed to surround Sarah as she sat across from him. He runs a hand through his perfectly styled hair, messing it up for the first time in recent memory. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. His phone buzzes, Richard's smug face appears on the screen. So, how goes the hunt for your future bride? His friend's voice drips with amusement. Alex can hear ice cubes clinking in a glass, even though it's barely past noon. It's handled, Alex replies automatically, though his stomach twists uncomfortably at the lie. He glances back at the cafe through his tinted windows, watching Sarah through the large front window as she serves other customers. There's a grace to her movements, an efficiency that speaks of years of hard work, something he realizes he knows nothing about. Really? That was fast. Do tell? Richard's voice holds a note of skepticism. Alex watches as Sarah laughs at something a customer says, her whole face lighting up in a way it hadn't during their interaction. Something sharp and uncomfortable pricks at his chest. I'll fill you in at the club later, Alex says dismissively, ending the call before Richard can protest. He sits there for a long moment, his engine idling quietly. This should be simple. A few grand to buy out the cafe, then swoop in as her savior with a job offer at one of his properties. She'd be grateful, they'd date, marry, and in 6 months he'd be $1 million richer. So why does the thought suddenly make him feel slightly nauseated? He finds himself returning to the cafe the next day and the next, always at different times. He orders different things each visit, watching how Sarah's initial coldness gradually thaws into professional politeness. He notices things, how she knows every regular's order by heart, how she slips extra cookies to the kids from the struggling family down the street, how her hands are slightly red from constant washing and work but she never complains. One morning he arrives just as she's opening, earlier than he's ever been anywhere voluntarily. The sun is barely peeking over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Sarah is struggling with a heavy bag of flour, trying to carry it from a delivery truck into the cafe. Before he can think about his $1,000 suit, Alex steps forward. Let me help you with that, he says, reaching for the bag. Sarah startles, nearly dropping it. Mr. Montgomery, you're here. At 5 a.m. She sounds suspicious, but also too tired to maintain her usual guard. Dark circles under her eyes suggest she hasn't slept much. Alex, he corrects automatically, lifting the bag with ease. And yes, I thought I'd see how the magic happens. Unless that's classified information too? He aims for teasing rather than sarcastic, and is rewarded with the smallest quirk of her lips. The magic is just hard work in early mornings, she says, leading him inside. The cafe is different at this hour, quiet, dark, full of potential. He watches as she moves through her opening routine with practiced efficiency, her movements almost meditative. Without makeup or her usual neat appearance, she looks younger, more vulnerable somehow. When she catches him staring, he quickly looks away. There are more bags in the truck, she says after a moment, and he realizes she's offering him a chance to help, or to leave. He removes his suit jacket, rolls up his sleeves and heads back outside. As he carries in bag after bag, he feels her eyes on him, evaluating, reassessing. His muscles burn pleasantly with the unfamiliar exercise, and he finds himself enjoying the simple physical labor in a way he never expected. When the last bag is stored, Sarah hands him a coffee, not his usual cappuccino but strong and black. Thank you, she says simply. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, he replies, surprising himself with his honesty. Their fingers brush as she passes him the cup, and he feels an electric jolt that has nothing to do with the coffee's heat. For a moment, they stand in silence as the first rays of sunlight stream through the windows, turning dust motes into floating gold. The morning quiet is broken by Sarah's phone buzzing insistently. Her face falls as she reads the message, and Alex watches as she seems to physically deflate, her shoulders sagging under an invisible weight. She quickly types a response, her fingers trembling slightly. "Is everything okay?" he asks, surprising himself with how much he actually wants to know the answer. Sarah looks up, seeming to debate whether to share or maintain her usual professional distance. "It's my mother," she says finally, her voice tight. "The hospital just called. There's been a complication with her insurance coverage for her treatment." She runs a hand through her hair, dislodging more strands from her bun. "I need to go down there, but I can't leave Rosa short-staffed, and the morning rush is about to start, and I have deliveries coming and dash." "Go," Alex interrupts, already rolling his sleeves up higher. "I'll help Rosa until you get back." The words are out of his mouth before he can process their implications. Sarah stares at him as if he suddenly started speaking in tongues. You're going to help serve coffee and bus tables?" There's disbelief in her voice, but also a hint of amusement. "I'm a fast learner," he says with more confidence than he feels. "Besides, how hard can it be?" As soon as the words leave his mouth, he realizes his mistake. Sarah's eyes narrow slightly. "All right, Mr. Fast Learner. Show me how you make a cappuccino." She gestures to the expensive Italian espresso machine that takes up a significant portion of the counter. Alex approaches it with the same trepidation he'd feel approaching a wild animal. The next few minutes are a comedy of errors as he struggles with the machine, producing something that looks more like a science experiment gone wrong than a drinkable beverage. Sarah watches, and he's certain he sees her bite back a smile several times. "Okay, maybe I need a crash course," he admits, wiping foam from his rolled-up sleeve. The admission of imperfection feels strange on his tongue, but Sarah's expression softens. "Look, I appreciate the offer, but she begins, but is interrupted by Rosa's arrival through the back door. "Why, Sarah? Why aren't you at the hospital already? Your mama needs you," Rosa exclaims, quickly assessing the situation. "Don't worry about anything here. Marco's cousin needs extra hours anyway, I'll call him in." "But the deliveries," Sarah protests weakly. "Go," both Rosa and Alex say simultaneously. They look at each other in surprise, and something unspoken passes between them, a shared concern for Sarah that transcends their different backgrounds. Sarah hesitates, then grabs her bag. "I'll be back as soon as I can," she promises, heading for the door. She pauses, turning back to Alex. "Thank you for offering. Even if your cappuccino needs work." There's a warmth in her voice he hasn't heard before. After she leaves, Rosa fixes Alex with a penetrating stare. "Why are you really here, Mr. Montgomery? And don't tell me it's for the real estate." Her tone makes it clear she'll accept nothing less than the truth. Alex opens his mouth to deliver his usual smooth deflection, but something stops him. Instead, he finds himself asking, "Does Sarah ever take a break? Actually rest?" Rosa's expression shifts subtly. "That girl? She works 3 jobs to pay for her mother's medical bills and still finds time to help me with the books and deliver leftover pastries to the homeless shelter every night." She shakes her head. "She's got her father's heart, too big for her own good." Alex feels something twist in his chest. 3 jobs? He probably spends more on a single dinner than she makes in a month. The thought makes him uncomfortable in a way he's never experienced before. Her father, she mentioned he taught her to bake? "Ah, David," Rosa's eyes grow sad. "He was the best baker I ever knew. Worked here for 15 years before the accident. Drunk driver." Sarah was in college then, full scholarship to Northwestern. She dropped everything to take care of her family. Never complained, just picked up her father's rolling pin and kept going. Alex finds himself sitting at the club later that evening, barely touching his usual scotch as Richard drones on about his latest yacht purchase. The opulent surroundings that once felt like home now seem gaudy, excessive. He keeps thinking about Sarah at the hospital, probably skipping meals while fighting with insurance companies. Earth to Alex, Richard waves his hand in front of Alex's face. "You've been weird lately. Don't tell me you're actually struggling with finding someone for our little bet?" His friend's smirk feels particularly grating tonight. "Actually," Alex begins, his voice tight, "I've been thinking about " He's interrupted by his phone buzzing. Sarah's name appears on the screen. He'd given her his card in case she reconsidered the real estate opportunity. His heart rate quickens as he answers. "Alex?" Her voice sounds small, tired. I'm sorry to bother you, but remember how you offered to help this morning? I hate to ask, but I could really use some help with something else. There's a vulnerability in her tone that makes his chest ache. Anything, he says immediately, already standing and grabbing his coat. Richard raises an eyebrow, mouthing, "Who is it?" Alex waves him off. 20 minutes later, he's walking through the fluorescent-lit halls of Chicago General Hospital. He finds Sarah in a hard plastic chair outside a treatment room, her head in her hands. She looks up as he approaches, and he can see she's been crying. "Thank you for coming," she says softly. I couldn't think of anyone else to call. The insurance company needs a guarantor for Mom's treatment, someone with significant assets. I can't wait for the appeal process. She needs the treatment now. I know it's a lot to ask." Alex sits beside her, acutely aware of how their shoulders almost touch. "Show me where to sign," he says without hesitation. Sarah's eyes widen. "Just like that? You don't even want to know how much it is?" "Just like that," he confirms, and for the first time in his life he's using his wealth for something that matters. The amount on the forms, enough to make most people faint, means nothing to him, but he can see Sarah's hands shaking as she hands him the paperwork. As he signs, she tells him about her mother's condition, about the experimental treatment that could help, about the years of watching her strong, vibrant mother slowly fade. Alex listens, really listens, something he's not sure he's ever done before. Later, as they sit in the hospital cafeteria sharing horrible coffee and stale sandwiches, Sarah asks the question he's been dreading. "Why are you helping me? Really?" Alex stares into his coffee cup, watching the artificial creamer create patterns in the dark liquid. The truth, that this all started as a bet, sits like acid in his stomach. Instead, he says, "Maybe I'm tired of being the person everyone thinks I am." Sarah studies him for a long moment. "And who do people think you are?" "Someone who only cares about money. Someone who's never worked for anything. Someone who..." He pauses, the words sticking in his throat. "Someone who wouldn't understand why you dropped everything to take care of your family. And are they wrong?" Sarah's question is gentle, but it hits him like a punch to the gut. "They were right," he admits. "But maybe I'm ready for them to be wrong." The moment is interrupted by a nurse calling Sarah's name. Her mother is awake and asking for her. As she stands to go, she squeezes his hand briefly. "Thank you, Alex. Not just for the guarantor thing, but for being here." He watches her walk away, her small figure somehow containing more strength than anyone he's ever known. His phone buzzes again, another message from Richard about the bet. He stares at it for a long moment before turning his phone off completely. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any of the amazing stories we have coming up. Your support really helps the channel grow and keeps us bringing you more of what you love. Thank you. The next few weeks pass in a blur of early mornings and quiet moments. Sarah notices the changes in Alex, subtle but significant. How he stops wearing suits to the cafe, trading them for simple button-downs and jeans. How he learns to work the espresso machine, practicing until his cappuccinos are almost presentable. How he shows up every morning to help with deliveries, never complaining about the hour or the work. One particularly busy morning, as Sarah needs dough for the day's bread, she finds herself watching Alex interact with their elderly regulars. He's learned all their names, their usual orders, their stories. Mr. Patterson, a retired teacher who always sits by the window, is showing Alex photos of his grandchildren. Alex's genuine interest and warm smile make something flutter in Sarah's chest. "You're staring again, Mihija," Rosa's voice makes Sarah jump. She quickly returns to her kneading, but she can feel her cheeks warming. "I'm not staring. I'm just making sure he doesn't mess up any orders." The excuse sounds weak even to her own ears. Rosa makes a sound that's half laugh, half snort. Sure. That's why you've been kneading that same piece of dough for 10 minutes. Any more and it'll be tough as leather." Rosa gently takes the dough from Sarah's hands. "He's different than when he first came here, no?" Sarah can't deny it. The arrogant businessman who first walked through their door seems like a different person entirely. Yesterday, she'd found him teaching Marco's 7-year-old daughter how to fold napkins into swans during his break, his expression of total concentration matching the little girl's. "He's still a Montgomery," Sarah says, but the words lack their former edge. "His world is completely different from ours." "Maybe," Rosa agrees, starting to shape the dough into loaves. "But maybe he's learning there's more to life than his world." She gives Sarah a knowing look. "He looks at you the same way your father used to look at your mother." Before Sarah can respond, there's a crash from the front of the cafe. They rush out to find Alex helping an elderly woman who's slipped on some spilled coffee. He's given her his jacket to keep her warm, heedless of the coffee stains now ruining what Sarah suspects is a very expensive piece of clothing. As he helps the woman to a chair, speaking to her softly and making sure she's okay, Sarah feels something in her carefully constructed walls begin to crumble. Later, after the excitement has died down and the woman's granddaughter has come to pick her up, Sarah finds Alex in the back alley behind the cafe, attempting to clean his jacket with club soda. "Here, let me help," she offers, taking the jacket from his hands. Their fingers brush and neither pulls away immediately. "I know a few tricks for getting out tough stains. My dry cleaner is going to have a heart attack." Alex chuckles, but he doesn't sound concerned. "Worth it though. Mrs. Chin reminded me of my grandmother." Sarah's hands still on the jacket. "You never talk about your family," she realizes aloud. Something shadows Alex's expression. "Not much to tell. Parents were always too busy building the empire to actually be parents. Grandmother practically raised me until she passed when I was 12. After that, well, let's just say I learned that in my world, everything has a price tag." He says it matter-of-factly, but Sarah hears the loneliness beneath his words. Without thinking, she reaches out and squeezes his hand. "Not everything," she says softly. Their eyes meet, and for a moment, the alley behind a small cafe in Chicago feels like the most important place in the world. Alex's free hand comes up to brush a strand of hair from her face, and Sarah feels her heart skip a beat. The back door bangs open, making them both jump. "Sarah, your mother's on the phone?" Marco calls out. The moment breaks, but something has shifted between them, something that can't be undone. That evening, Alex sits in his penthouse apartment, staring at the Chicago skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. His usual comfort in these luxurious surroundings has been replaced by a gnawing emptiness. The jacket Sarah helped clean lies across his lap, and he can still smell the faint trace of vanilla and cinnamon that seems to follow her everywhere. His phone has 17 missed calls from Richard. The bet's deadline is approaching. 3 months have passed already, though they feel both like minutes and lifetimes. Alex takes a long drink from his glass, hoping the burning sensation of expensive scotch will drown out the voice in his head telling him he's in too deep. A text message lights up his screen. "Movie night at the hospital?" Mom's feeling up for company, and they're showing some old Frank Capra film. Probably not up to your usual standards, but there's contraband popcorn involved. "Sarah." His heart does that strange flip it's been doing lately whenever he sees her name. Without hesitation he texts back, "On my way. I'll bring better contraband." 30 minutes later, he's walking through the hospital corridors carrying genuine movie theater popcorn and an assortment of candy. He finds Sarah and her mother, Li Wei, in the hospital's small community room. Sarah's mother is in a wheelchair, wrapped in blankets, but her eyes are bright and alert. "So this is the famous Alex," Li Wei says as he enters, her accent slight but noticeable. Her scrutinizing gaze reminds him of his grandmother, and he feels an unexpected surge of nervousness. "Sarah tells me you've been helping at the cafe." "More like creating extra work for everyone," Sarah interjects, but her tone is teasing, warm. She's wearing simple jeans and a sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders, and Alex thinks she's never looked more beautiful. "I'm a work in progress," he admits, settling into a chair beside them. The movie starts. It's a Wonderful Life, and Alex finds himself more interested in watching Sarah and her mother than the screen. They clearly know every line, mouthing them along with the actors, sharing looks and silent laughs at inside jokes. Halfway through the film, he notices Li Wei has dozed off. Sarah adjusts her mother's blankets with practiced tenderness, and Alex is struck by how naturally caregiving comes to her. His own mother would have delegated such tasks to household staff. "She likes you," Sarah whispers, catching him watching them. "She says you remind her of my dad. He was always trying to help everyone too, even when we barely had enough for ourselves." The comparison to her father, a man who worked himself to exhaustion to provide for his family, makes Alex's stomach twist with guilt. He doesn't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as someone so genuinely good. "Sarah," he starts, his voice rough. "There's something I need to tell you, Dash." "Oh." "Mom's favorite part is coming up," Sarah interrupts excitedly, gently shaking her mother awake. Li Wei stirs, smiling as she orients herself. The moment passes, and Alex's confession dies in his throat as he watches mother and daughter share their simple joy in an old movie. Later, as they walk to the parking lot, Sarah shivers in the cool night air. Without thinking, Alex shrugs off his jacket and drapes it over her shoulders. She pulls it closer, looking up at him with an expression that makes his heart stutter. "Thank you for coming tonight," she says softly. "I know this probably isn't how you usually spend your evenings." "This is better," he replies honestly. The city lights reflect in her eyes, and he has to shove his hands in his pockets to keep from reaching for her. "Sarah," I dash. His phone buzzes loudly in his pocket. Richard's name flashes on the screen along with a text. 30 days left, buddy. Time to seal the deal or pay up. Unless you're actually falling for this girl? Alex quickly shoves the phone back in his pocket, but not before Sarah catches a glimpse of his expression. "Everything okay?" she asks, concern evident in her voice. "Just work," he lies, hating himself for it. "Nothing important." But as he watches her drive away in her old Honda, the weight of his deception feels heavier than ever. He realizes with sudden clarity that he's no longer playing a game, he's playing with someone's heart. Someone who, against all odds, has become the most important person in his world. The morning rush at the little corner cafe is in full swing when Richard walks through the door, his designer shoes clicking against the worn tile floor. Alex, who's wiping down tables, feels his blood run cold. Sarah is at the counter, cheerfully handling the line of customers, completely unaware of the impending collision of Alex's two worlds. Well, Richard drawls loud enough to draw attention. "When they said Alexander Montgomery III was playing barista, I had to see it for myself." His voice carries that particular tone of amused disdain that Alex himself used to perfect. Sarah looks up, her smile faltering slightly as she takes in Richard's expensive suit and sneering expression. Alex quickly moves to intercept his friend, but Richard is already making his way to the counter. "You must be Sarah," Richard says, looking her up and down in a way that makes Alex's fists clench. "I've heard so much about you." Well, not from Alex directly, he's been rather secretive lately. But word gets around. "I'm sorry, you are?" Sarah's voice is polite but cool. Alex notices how she straightens her spine, unconsciously preparing for confrontation. "Richard Sterling. Alex's best friend since prep school." He emphasizes the last two words slightly, though he seems to have forgotten that lately. "Missing our standing squash games? Avoiding the club?" His eyes fix on Alex. One might think he's embarrassed of his old friends. "I've been busy," Alex says tersely, moving to stand beside Sarah. He can feel the tension radiating from her body, sees the questions forming in her eyes. "Yes, I can see that." Richard's smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Though I must say, when you said you had everything handled for our little arrangement, I didn't expect this." He gestures vaguely at Alex's casual clothes and the cafe's modest surroundings. "Richard," Alex warns, but it's too late. He sees the moment Sarah picks up on the word arrangement, watches as her expression shifts from confusion to suspicion. "What arrangement?" she asks quietly, looking between them. The cafe has grown oddly silent, the regular customers sensing the brewing drama. Richard's eyebrows rise in mock surprise. "Oh, you haven't told her? About our little dash? That's enough." Alex's voice comes out sharper than he intended. Sarah takes a step back from him, and the hurt in her eyes cuts deeper than any wound he's ever felt. "Alex?" Her voice trembles slightly. "What is he talking about?" Before he can respond, the door chimes again. A group of reporters from the Chicago Tribune enters, led by a woman with a predatory smile. "Mr. Montgomery, care to comment on the rumors that you're slumming it as part of some sort of bet?" The color drains from Sarah's face. "Bet?" she whispers. "Now this is getting interesting," Richard murmurs, looking entirely too pleased with himself. Rosa emerges from the kitchen, taking in the scene with sharp eyes. "Sarah mihija dash." But Sarah is already moving, untying her apron with shaking hands. "I need some air," she says, her voice barely audible. She heads for the back door, ignoring Alex's attempt to catch her arm as she passes. "Sarah, please, let me explain." He starts to follow her, but Rosa steps in his path, her usually kind face hard with anger. "I think you've done enough, Mr. Montgomery," she says, emphasizing his surname like it's a curse. Through the window, he watches Sarah disappear down the alley, her shoulders shaking in a way that tells him she's crying. The reporters are still shouting questions, their cameras flashing. Richard stands smugly by the counter, while the regular customers whisper and stare. The small, warm world Alex had found himself becoming part of is shattering around him, and for the first time in his life, all his money and power can't fix what he's broken. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any of the amazing stories we have coming up. Your support really helps the channel grow and keeps us bringing you more of what you love. Thank you. Sarah finds herself at her father's grave, the morning's newspaper crumpled in her hand. The headlines scream about Alexander Montgomery III's social experiment, complete with photos of her serving coffee, smiling up at him, trusting him. She traces her father's name on the headstone, wishing more than ever that he was here to advise her. "You would have seen right through him, wouldn't you, Ba?" she whispers, wiping tears from her cheeks. "You always said to judge people by their actions, not their words." But his actions. She thinks of early mornings helping with deliveries, of gentle hands adjusting her mother's hospital blankets, of quiet conversations and shared laughter. His actions lied too. Her phone buzzes for the 100th time, another message from Alex. She hasn't read any of them, just like she hasn't listened to his voicemails or answered his calls. The betrayal sits like ice in her chest, freezing everything else out. "Sarah?" Rosa's voice comes from behind her. The older woman settles onto the bench beside her, joints creaking slightly. "Marco's handling the cafe. I thought I might find you here." "I feel so stupid," Sarah says, her voice rough from crying. "All those times he helped at the cafe, visited Mom in the hospital, it was all for a bet. I was just a game to him." Rosa takes the newspaper from Sarah's clenched fingers, smoothing it out. "I've seen many people fake kindness in my life, Mihija. It's not so easy to fake the way he looked at you when you weren't watching. Or the way he changed over these months. That's what makes it worse," Sarah admits, voicing the thought that's been haunting her. Sometimes I think parts of it were real. But then I remember it all started as a lie and I can't." She breaks off, fresh tears threatening. A gentle breeze stirs the flowers she brought for her father, simple daisies, all she could afford. Next to them sits an elaborate arrangement of lilies that wasn't there when she arrived. Her father's favorite flowers. She knows who must have sent them, and the thought makes her chest ache anew. "Your mother's asking for you," Rosa says softly. "The nurses say she's been agitated since she saw the news." Sarah closes her eyes, guilt washing over her. In her own pain, she's been avoiding the hospital, afraid of facing her mother's disappointment, or worse, her pity. "What do I tell her, Rosa?" She trusted him too. We all did. "Tell her the truth. That you're her daughter, strong like your father, and this won't break you." Rosa squeezes her hand. "And maybe listen to what he has to say. Not for him but for yourself. So you can move forward one way or another." Sarah looks down at her phone, at the dozens of unread messages. One catches her eye, not from Alex, but from the hospital's billing department. Her stomach drops as she opens it. The guarantor for her mother's treatment has pulled out. All the arrangements Alex made are being reversed. "He's taking it all back," she whispers, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. "The insurance guarantees everything." The full weight of her situation crashes down on her. Her mother's treatment, the mounting bills, the fragile stability she'd begun to feel, all crumbling because she'd been foolish enough to trust a man who saw her life as a game. Rosa reads the message over her shoulder, her expression darkening. "Mi amor, we'll figure something out. The community will help dash." "No," Sarah stands abruptly, wiping her tears away with determined fingers. "I've done this before. When Ba died, everyone said we couldn't manage, but we did. I'll pick up more tutoring hours, maybe look into selling some of Ba's old recipes to that bakery chain that was interested." The plans flow automatically, her survival instincts kicking in even as her heart breaks. Alex paces his penthouse office, phone pressed to his ear, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. "What do you mean you can't reinstate the guarantor status?" "I don't care about the paperwork. This is my signature, my responsibility." His voice echoes off the glass walls as he argues with the hospital's administrative office. "I understand, Mr. Montgomery, but once a guarantor withdraws, there's a mandatory waiting period before the administrator begins." "I didn't withdraw anything," Alex interrupts, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "My father's board of directors did that without my knowledge or consent." He thinks of the emergency board meeting his father had called, of the cold fury in the older man's eyes as he systematically undid everything Alex had arranged for Sarah's mother. The Montgomery Corporation's legal team was very clear about terminating all connections to the Chen family, the administrator replies diplomatically. Perhaps if Ms. Chen could find another guarantor Alex ends the call, resisting the urge to throw his phone against the wall. On his desk, every major Chicago newspaper carries the story of his social experiment. His PR team has been working overtime to spin it as a positive piece about crossing social boundaries, but all he can see is Sarah's face when the truth came out. "You look terrible," Richard's voice comes from the doorway. Alex turns to find his former best friend leaning against the frame, looking annoyingly composed. "Get out," Alex growls, but Richard holds up his hands in mock surrender. Hey, don't blame me for this mess. I didn't call the papers. That was your father's doing. Besides, you won the bet. $1 million is yours as soon as you admit it's over and come back to the real world. Alex moves faster than he ever has in his life, grabbing Richard by his expensive lapels and pushing him against the wall. The real world? You want to talk about the real world? Sarah works 3 jobs to keep her mother alive. She dropped out of Northwestern to take care of her family after her father was killed by a drunk driver. She delivers leftover food to homeless shelters every night even though she can barely afford her own groceries. That's the real world, Richard. What we do here. This is the fantasy. Richard's smug expression falters slightly. Alex, come on. You can't seriously be falling for Dash. I love her, Alex interrupts, the words exploding out of him. I love her, and I destroyed everything because I was too much of a coward to tell her the truth from the beginning. He releases Richard, stepping back. Get out. And take your $1 million with you. After Richard leaves, Alex sinks into his chair, staring at the city sprawled below. His phone lights up with a text from his father's assistant. Another reminder about the emergency shareholders meeting where they'll discuss his recent inappropriate behavior. He ignores it, instead pulling up the photos on his phone. Sarah teaching him to knead bread, Sarah laughing with her mother in the hospital, Sarah falling asleep on his shoulder during movie night. A knock at his door interrupts his thoughts. Mr. Montgomery? There's a Ms. Martinez here to see you. From the little corner cafe? Alex jumps to his feet as Rosa enters his office, her expression unreadable. Before he can speak, she holds up a hand. I'm not here because I forgive you, she says firmly. I'm here because Sarah is too proud to ask for help even now. The hospital is demanding immediate payment or they'll stop her mother's treatment. She's talking about selling her father's recipes, the only thing she has left of him. The words hit Alex like physical blows. I'm trying to fix it, Rosa. My father's bored Dash. I don't care about your family politics, Rosa interrupts. That girl loved you. Real love, not your game. So you need to decide right now, are you the man she thought you were, or the man your friend thinks you are? Rosa's words echo in Alex's mind as he strides into the Montgomery Corporation's emergency shareholders meeting. The boardroom falls silent as he enters, his father's disapproving glare following him to the podium. The familiar faces of board members and major shareholders stare back at him, all waiting to hear him apologize to fall back in line. Before you vote on my future in this company, Alex begins, his voice steady despite his racing heart, I want to make something clear. Every decision I made regarding Sarah Chen and her mother's medical care stands. If this board or my father attempts to block those arrangements again, I will sell every share I own, 28% of this company, on the open market. Gasps and murmurs fill the room. His father stands, face reddening. You would destroy your family's legacy over some waitress? No, father. I'm trying to live up to our legacy. Grandmother used to tell me stories about how great-grandfather started this company. An immigrant with nothing but determination and a belief that success meant lifting others up with you. Alex meets his father's eyes. Somewhere along the way we forgot that. He pulls out a thick folder and starts distributing documents to the shocked board members. These are my plans for a new Montgomery Foundation initiative, providing medical care guarantees for families facing catastrophic illness. Sarah Chen will be our first recipient, but not our last. And if you won't support this, then I'll do it myself with my shares of the company. You can't be serious, his father sputters. This is about that ridiculous bet Dash. This stopped being about the bet months ago, Alex interrupts. This is about who I want to be. Who I am when I'm with her. He looks around the room at the wealth and power concentrated in these few people. I've spent my whole life in rooms like this, thinking this was all that mattered. Sarah showed me a different kind of wealth. The kind that comes from caring for others, from building something real. The boardroom doors burst open and Richard rushes in, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. Alex, stop. You need to get to Chicago General right now. It's Sarah's mother. Alex's heart stops. Without another word to the board, he runs out, leaving the papers scattered across the mahogany table. The drive to the hospital is a blur of running red lights and ignored speed limits. He finds Sarah in the ICU waiting room, her small frame curled into a plastic chair, looking more vulnerable than he's ever seen her. Sarah, he breathes her name like a prayer. She looks up, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. What are you doing here? Her voice is hoarse, exhausted. Come to see the finale of your social experiment? Sarah, please. He starts, but she cuts him off. Mom's heart stopped during treatment. They brought her back, but her voice breaks. They say without the continuous treatment, it could happen again. The hospital administrator came by earlier. Told me they can't proceed without guaranteed payment. She laughs, a hollow sound. Apparently, the Montgomery Corporation made it very clear they wouldn't be responsible. I'm fixing it, Alex says desperately. I just told the board dash. I don't need you to fix anything. Sarah stands, swaying slightly with fatigue. You don't get it, do you? This isn't about money. It's about trust. It's about looking at someone and believing you see their real self, only to find out it was all a game. It started as a game, Alex admits, his voice cracking. But it hasn't been that for a long time. Sarah, somewhere between early morning deliveries and late night hospital visits, between your cinnamon rolls and your father's stories, I fell in love with you. Really, truly in love. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any of the amazing stories we have coming up. Your support really helps the channel grow and keeps us bringing you more of what you love. Thank you. Sarah stares at Alex, his words hanging in the sterile hospital air between them. A nurse hurries past, the squeak of her shoes on the linoleum floor the only sound in the otherwise silent corridor. Through the ICU window, she can see her mother's small form surrounded by beeping machines, each one a reminder of how precarious their situation is. Love? She finally manages, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. You don't even know what that word means. Love is my father working 2 jobs so I could take piano lessons. Love is my mother insisting I apply to college even when we could barely afford groceries. Love isn't. She gestures between them, whatever game this was. You're right, Alex says quietly, and something in his tone makes her really look at him. His perfectly tailored suit is wrinkled, his hair disheveled. Dark circles under his eyes suggest he hasn't slept. I didn't know what love was. How could I? In my world, everything was transactional. Even relationships were just mergers and acquisitions. He steps closer, and Sarah finds herself unable to move away. But then I met you. I watched you wake up at 4 a.m. to bake bread because you knew Mr. Patterson loves it fresh from the oven. I saw you spend your break helping Marco's daughter with her homework. I learned what real wealth looks like, not in bank accounts but in how much you give of yourself to others. Sarah's throat tightens. Stop, she whispers, but Alex continues, his voice rough with emotion. I just came from the Montgomery Corporation board meeting. I threatened to sell every share I own unless they reinstate your mother's medical guarantees. Not just hers. I'm starting a foundation to help other families too. He runs a hand through his hair, a gesture she once found endearing. And you know what? For the first time in my life, I don't care what they think. I don't care about the money. I care about making things right. Before Sarah can respond, a commotion erupts from her mother's room. The machines are beeping frantically and medical staff rush in. Sarah moves to follow, but a nurse gently holds her back. You need to wait here, the nurse says kindly. The doctor will update you soon. Sarah's knees buckle and she finds herself caught by Alex's strong arms. Despite everything, she allows herself to lean into his support for just a moment. His familiar scent, expensive cologne mixed with the coffee she spilled on him weeks ago, brings unwanted tears to her eyes. I can't lose her too, she whispers, more to herself than to Alex. Not like Ba. You won't, Alex says firmly. He pulls out his phone, fingers flying over the screen. Dr. Patel? Yes, I need you at Chicago General right now. Li Wei Chen's case. Bring whatever specialist you need. He pauses, listening. Money is no object. Just get here. Sarah pushes away from him. I don't want your help. Don't you understand? Every time you swoop in to save the day, it just reminds me that this whole relationship was built on a lie. You saw me as some charity case, some bet you could win dash. No, Alex interrupts, his voice fierce. I saw you as the woman who taught me what matters in life. The woman who made me want to be better. The woman I want to spend the rest of my life proving myself to, if she'll let me. He takes her hand, pressing something into it. This was my grandmother's. The only person in my family who truly loved me. I've carried it every day since she died, but now... He closes her fingers around a small, worn key on a delicate gold chain. Sarah stares at the small key in her palm, its gold surface worn smooth with age. Despite her anger, she can't help but notice how Alex's hands shake slightly as he releases it to her care. My grandmother grew up poor in Ireland, Alex says softly, his eyes fixed on the key. She used to tell me stories about how she'd hide her most precious possessions in a small box under a loose floorboard, bits of ribbon, a dried flower from her mother's garden, a picture of her family before the famine took half of them. This key opened that box. Sarah's fingers close around the key involuntarily. Through the ICU window, she can see doctors working on her mother, their movements quick but controlled. A memory surfaces, her father teaching her to make moon cakes, showing her how his mother's wooden rolling pin had survived the Cultural Revolution hidden in a false bottom of their kitchen cabinet. When she married my grandfather, she could have bought anything she wanted, Alex continues, his voice thick with emotion. But she kept that box, kept this key. She said it reminded her that real treasure isn't what you own, it's what you hold in your heart. He swallows hard. She was the only one who saw me, really saw me. Not as the Montgomery heir, but just as Alex. The way you did. Before Sarah can respond, Dr. Patel arrives with a team of specialists, rushing past them into her mother's room. Sarah watches through the window as they consult with the other doctors, their expressions serious but focused. Your mother told me something the last time I visited her, Alex says quietly. About your father's rolling pin, how it was more than just a baking tool. It was a symbol of survival, of carrying on family traditions even when everything else was lost. He runs a hand through his hair. I didn't understand then, not really. But this key, it's the only thing I have that reminds me of who I could be, not who I was expected to be. Sarah's grip tightens on the key. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand that I know what it means to give you this. It's not about money or power or making things right. It's about trust. About letting you see the real me, even the parts I've kept locked away my whole life. His voice cracks slightly. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know that everything between us, the early mornings, the late nights, every laugh and every quiet moment, that was real. The most real thing in my life. Dr. Patel emerges from her mother's room, and Sarah holds her breath. The doctor's face is serious but not grim. We've stabilized her, he says. The new treatment protocol I'm suggesting should prevent further episodes like this, but we need to start immediately. I've already reviewed her case files, and with your permission, Sarah feels the weight of the key in her hand, warm now from her grip. Through the window, she sees her mother's eyes flutter open, searching the room until they find her. Despite everything, she feels Alex's steady presence beside her, not touching but close enough to catch her if she falls, just like he has so many times before. Sarah looks from the key in her hand to her mother's hopeful face through the ICU window, feeling the weight of both past and future pressing down on her. Dr. Patel waits patiently for her response about the new treatment protocol, his tablet filled with charts and possibilities. The treatment costs. She begins, but Alex steps forward. Are covered, he says firmly. Not by the Montgomery Corporation, but by me personally. I've already transferred the funds. He meets Dr. Patel's eyes. Whatever it takes. Sarah feels a surge of familiar frustration. Alex, I told you dash. I know, he interrupts gently. You don't want my help. But this isn't about you or me. It's about your mother. And if you never forgive me, if you never speak to me again after this, I'll accept that. But please, let me do this one thing right. Through the window, her mother beckons weakly. Sarah enters the ICU room, the key still clutched in her hand. The familiar hospital sense of antiseptic and illness wrap around her as she approaches the bed. Ma, she starts, but her mother reaches for her hand, her grip surprisingly strong. I heard, Li Wei says softly in Mandarin. About the bet. About everything. Before Sarah can respond, she continues, your father and I had an arranged marriage, you know. Not for money, but still, we didn't choose each other at first. Sarah blinks in surprise. Her parents' love had always seemed so natural, so meant to be. But you and Ba? We fell in love later, through small moments. The way he would warm my hands when they were cold from making dumplings. The way he remembered every story about my childhood in Taiwan. Li Wei's eyes drift to Alex, who stands awkwardly in the doorway. Sometimes love comes after daughter. Sometimes it grows in spite of how things begin. Sarah follows her mother's gaze. Alex is speaking quietly with Dr. Patel, his usual confident posture replaced by something more humble, more real. She remembers all the times he'd sat in this very room, reading Chinese folktales to her mother, asking questions about her father's recipes, genuinely wanting to understand their world. He was willing to lose everything. Rosa's voice comes from behind her. Sarah turns to find her old friend entering the room. At the board meeting today, he was ready to sell his entire inheritance to help you. Not to win you back, but because it was right. You were at the board meeting? Sarah asks, surprised. Rosa nods. I followed him there after I told him about your mother. I wanted to see what he would do. She takes Sarah's free hand. Mihija, sometimes people show us who they really are not in their perfect moments, but in how they try to fix their mistakes. The key in Sarah's other hand seems to grow warmer. She thinks about her father's rolling pin, about Alex's grandmother's box, about all the precious things people hold onto that have no value except to the heart. She thinks about early mornings in the cafe, about Alex learning to knead dough with the same determination he once applied to making money, about the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. The new treatment, she says finally, turning to Dr. Patel. What are the chances it will work? If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any of the amazing stories we have coming up. Your support really helps the channel grow and keeps us bringing you more of what you love. Thank you. Dr. Patel's explanation of the treatment is thorough but hopeful. As he speaks, Sarah finds herself unconsciously moving closer to Alex, drawn to his steady presence just as she had been so many times before. The medical terminology washes over her until one phrase catches her attention. 85% success rate, Dr. Patel says, his eyes kind but professional. With immediate intervention, your mother's prognosis is very good. He pauses, glancing at his tablet. However, the window for starting treatment is narrow. We need to begin within the next hour to maximize effectiveness. Sarah feels the weight of the decision pressing down on her. The key in her palm seems to pulse with each beat of her heart. Her mother watches her from the hospital bed, eyes full of understanding and something else, hope, not just for her own recovery but for her daughter's happiness. There are papers to sign, Dr. Patel continues gently. Both for the treatment and the financial arrangements. Alex steps forward, careful to maintain a respectful distance from Sarah. Everything's prepared. You just need to dash. To trust you, Sarah finishes quietly. The words hang between them, heavy with meaning. She looks down at the key again, remembering Alex's grandmother, a woman who kept her most precious possessions locked away, not in a bank vault, but in a simple box with this small key. A woman who understood that true value isn't always measured in dollars. Li Wei's monitors beep steadily in the background as Sarah makes her decision. Start the treatment, she tells Dr. Patel. Then, turning to Alex, but we need to talk. Really talk. About everything. Relief floods Alex's face, but he contains it quickly. Whatever you need. I'm not going anywhere. The next few hours pass in a blur of medical activity. Sarah signs papers, watches as new medications are added to her mother's and listens as Dr. Patel explains every step of the process. Through it all, Alex remains nearby, not hovering but present, handling paperwork and logistics with a humility that would have seemed impossible months ago. As evening falls, Li Wei finally drifts into a peaceful sleep, her vital signs strong and stable. Sarah stands by the window watching the city lights come alive below. She feels Alex approach before she sees him, his presence as familiar to her now as her own heartbeat. The first round of treatment went well, he says softly. Dr. Patel is optimistic. Sarah nods, still looking out at the city. Why did you keep coming to the cafe? She asks suddenly. Even after you realized it wasn't just about the bet anymore. You could have walked away, found an easier way to win. Alex is quiet for a long moment. Because every morning I spent there, every time I saw you work so hard for others, every story I heard about your father, I felt more like the person I wanted to be, not the person I was raised to be. He moves to stand beside her, careful not to touch. The bet brought me to your door, but you brought me home. In the hospital's small garden courtyard, Sarah and Alex sit on a weathered wooden bench. The night air is cool, carrying the faint scent of blooming jasmine from the carefully tended flower beds. Above them, stars struggle to be seen through the city's light pollution, much like truth fighting to shine through layers of deception. Tell me about the bet, Sarah says quietly. All of it. From the beginning. She holds his grandmother's key in her lap, her fingers tracing its worn edges. Alex takes a deep breath. It started at the club. Richard was talking about marriage being a scam, about how people from different social classes couldn't really connect. I was arrogant, bored, convinced I could prove him wrong. His voice carries the weight of shame. $1 million if I could make someone fall in love with me within 6 months. Someone who made less than $40,000 a year. Sarah's fingers still on the key. And you chose me. No, Alex says, surprising her. I chose the cafe because it was in a neighborhood Montgomery Corporation was targeting for development. Meeting you? He pauses, struggling for words. Meeting you wasn't part of any plan. You were just you. Genuine, hardworking, kind in a way I'd never known before. You reminded me of my grandmother, The one who owned this key, Sarah says softly. Alex nods. She used to say that real love isn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It's about showing up, day after day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. He laughs quietly. I didn't understand what she meant until I found myself getting up at 4 a.m. to help with deliveries, not because of the bet, but because I wanted to see you smile. Sarah remembers those mornings, Alex gradually learning to handle heavy flour bags, to work the temperamental coffee machine, to greet regular customers by name. When did it stop being about the bet? I think it was the day you told me about your father, Alex says after a moment. How he kept baking even when the arthritis made his hands hurt, because he believed in creating something that brought joy to others. I'd never known anyone who worked that hard not for money but for love. He turns to face her fully. The bet brought me to you, but everything after that, every early morning, every hospital visit, every shared moment, that was real. I just didn't have the courage to tell you the truth. Sarah looks down at the key in her hands. And now? What happens now? Now, Alex says carefully, I want to earn back your trust. Not with money or grand gestures, but by showing up. By being the person you believed I could be. He hesitates, then continues, I told the board I'm stepping down from active management of Montgomery Corporation. I want to focus on the foundation, on helping families like yours. Not to impress you, but because you showed me what really matters. A light breeze stirs Sarah's hair, carrying the distant sounds of the city. In her pocket, her phone buzzes with a text from Rosa. Her mother's latest test results are encouraging. The treatment is working. My father used to say that true character isn't about never making mistakes, Sarah says finally. It's about what you do after you make them. She holds up the key. Your grandmother sounds like she was a wise woman. She would have loved you, Alex says softly. Almost as much as I do. 3 weeks later, the little corner cafe buzzes with its usual morning energy, but something has shifted. Alex works behind the counter, his designer clothes replaced with a simple button-down and the cafe's standard apron. He's gotten better at making cappuccinos, though his latte art still makes the regulars laugh. Sarah watches from the kitchen doorway as he handles the morning rush with a grace that would have seemed impossible months ago. Your young man is getting better, Rosa says, appearing beside her with a tray of fresh pastries. He only burned 2 batches of cookies yesterday. He's not my... Sarah starts automatically, then stops. The past weeks have been a careful dance of rebuilding trust, of learning to see each other clearly. Alex has shown up every morning, not as the Montgomery heir, but as just another member of their small cafe family. He's learned to work hard, to admit mistakes, to find joy in simple achievements. Her mother's recovery has been steady, the new treatment working better than anyone hoped. Sarah has caught Alex sitting with Li Wei during visiting hours, learning to make dumplings with inexpert but enthusiastic hands, listening to stories about her father with genuine interest. The cafe's door chimes and Richard walks in, looking uncomfortable in the casual setting. The regular customers tense, remembering his last dramatic visit, but Alex merely looks up calmly from the espresso machine. Rich, he acknowledges. What can I get you? Richard shifts, adjusting his tie. The board sent me. They're concerned about your decision to step back from the company. About the foundation. He glances around the cafe. They're willing to make concessions. To forget about recent events? Alex continues making drinks, his movements unhurried. And what do you think, Rich? Still believe people from different worlds can't connect? Richard watches as Alex serves an elderly customer, remembering her name and asking about her grandchildren. He sees how the morning regulars treat Alex now, not as a wealthy outsider, but as part of their community. I think, Richard says slowly, that I might have been wrong about some things. He pulls out an envelope. The $1 million from the bet. I thought, maybe it could be the first donation to your foundation. Sarah feels her breath catch, waiting for Alex's response. He looks at the envelope, then at Sarah, his eyes full of meaning. Keep it, Alex says. Donate it to a cause you believe in. I found something worth more than any bet. He turns to help another customer, leaving Richard standing there with the envelope and a thoughtful expression. Later, as the morning rush dies down, Sarah finds Alex in the back alley where they once almost kissed. He's taking out the recycling, a task he would have considered beneath him just months ago. I heard what you said to Richard, she says, fiddling with the key she now wears on a chain around her neck. About finding something worth more. Alex sets down the recycling bin, turning to face her. I meant it. Everything I have, everything I am. None of it meant anything until I learned what real value looks like. Until you showed me. Sarah leads Alex up the narrow stairs to her apartment above the cafe, the same stairs he once climbed with such disdain. Now he follows her with reverence, understanding that she's inviting him not just into her space, but into her trust again. The apartment is small but warm, filled with photographs and mementos of her family's history. "I want to show you something," she says, moving to a worn wooden chest in the corner. From it, she removes her father's rolling pin, the wood smooth from decades of use. "Ba always said that everything we create carries a piece of our heart." She runs her fingers along the grain of the wood. "When he died, I thought I'd never be able to bake again. It hurt too much. But then I realized that every time I used his rolling pin, every recipe I remembered, it was like having a piece of him with me." Alex watches her with quiet understanding. She takes his grandmother's key from around her neck, holding it alongside the rolling pin. "Two pieces of family history," she says softly. "Both kept safe not because of their monetary value, but because of the love they represent." "Sarah," Alex starts, but she holds up a hand. "Let me finish. These past weeks, watching you work in the cafe, seeing you with my mother, with our customers, you've shown me who you really are. Not the Alex Montgomery who made that bet, but the Alex your grandmother knew you could be." Through the window, the sounds of the city drift up, car horns, distant sirens, the rhythm of life continuing below. In the cafe downstairs, they can hear Rosa singing softly in Spanish as she prepares for the afternoon rush. "The foundation approved its first 10 families today," Alex says, his voice quiet but full of emotion. 10 families who won't have to choose between medical care and keeping their homes. "And it's all because of you." "Because of us," Sarah corrects gently. "Because you chose to be more than what was expected of you." She places the rolling pin and key side by side on her small kitchen table. "My mother told me something interesting yesterday. She said that when Ba first started teaching me to bake, I failed completely. But I kept trying day after day until I got it right." Alex moves closer, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Second chances?" "Second chances," Sarah confirms. "Not because of grand gestures or million-dollar bets, but because of all the small moments. The early mornings, the hospital visits, the burned cookies." She smiles slightly. "The terrible cappuccinos?" "Hey, my cappuccinos have improved significantly," Alex protests, but his eyes are suspiciously bright. Sarah takes a step closer to him. "The bet might have brought you into my life, but that's not why you're still here. You're here because every day you choose to be. Just like I'm choosing to trust you again." 1 year later, the little corner cafe is filled with familiar faces. Li Wei, now fully recovered, works alongside Rosa, teaching her traditional Chinese recipes. The cafe has expanded, not with Montgomery Corporation money, but through its own success. Word of their unique fusion of Chinese and traditional pastries has spread throughout Chicago. Alex stands at the counter, competently handling the morning rush while wearing a simple gold band on his finger that matches Sarah's. They had married 6 months ago in a small ceremony in the cafe's garden, where Alex had sworn his vows not with expensive rings or grand promises, but with his grandmother's key and a commitment to show up every day for the rest of their lives. The Montgomery Foundation, now run jointly by Alex and Sarah, has helped hundreds of families access medical care. But more importantly, it's inspired other wealthy families to do the same, creating a ripple effect of positive change throughout the city. Sarah watches from the kitchen as Alex teaches Marco's daughter how to make the perfect cappuccino, his patience and gentleness a far cry from the arrogant man who first walked through their door. Her father's rolling pin sits proudly displayed alongside Alex's grandmother's box, both reminders of where they came from and what they've built together. "You know," Li Wei says, coming to stand beside her daughter, "your father would be proud. Not just of the cafe's success, but of how you've helped Alex find his true heart." Sarah smiles, touching the key that still hangs around her neck. "He helped me too, Ma. He showed me that people can change when you give them a reason to believe in themselves." The morning sunlight streams through the cafe windows, turning the simple scene into something magical, a moment of perfect contentment built not on wealth or status, but on love, trust, and the courage to see beyond surface appearances. Alex catches Sarah's eye across the cafe and smiles. Not the practiced smile of a wealthy heir, but the genuine smile of a man who has found his true home. Because in the end, the greatest dare wasn't about making someone fall in love, it was about daring to become the person worthy of that love. In a city full of towering skyscrapers and powerful corporations, the little corner cafe stands as a testament to a simple truth. Real wealth isn't measured in dollars and cents, but in the connections we forge, the trust we build, and the love we choose every single day. As morning turns to afternoon, customers come and go, each greeted by name, each part of the extended family that Alex and Sarah have built together. Their story spreads throughout Chicago, not as a scandal about a millionaire's bet, but as a reminder that true love has the power to transform not just two people, but entire communities. The moral of their story echoes in every cup of coffee served, every pastry shared, every life touched by their foundation. Love isn't about grand gestures or monetary value, it's about showing up day after day, choosing to be better, and believing in the power of second chances. Sometimes, the longest journey isn't the distance between two social classes, but the path from who we are to who we can become.